Hey everyone, good evening, good morning, good afternoon to wherever you are in the world. So, UniLayer team here is once again, we're here again to discuss more about the project, and this time we'll be talking more about, we're gonna dive in deeper into the tech side of UniLayer. So get your questions ready and have you, because we have here the CEO of UniLayer Network, Alex. So, hi Alex, good to see you again.
Hey, good to
So,
see
yeah.
you. Let's get
Welcome.
started.
Cool. And yeah, I'm excited to like what you're gonna share today because I've heard like there's some major milestone in the testnet already. So I think that's very exciting. And another also here with us is the lead analyst for analysis for UniLayer Network, Nick. So Nick, I think uh,
Hello,
people
everyone.
people saw you before with our Smart State event. So I think they're familiar with you. So yeah, so a little bit about like how you guys doing?
It is very challenging day to truth be told today because there was a massive attack on Solana and we provided our resources in order to help it a little bit, but still because it's like what should be done by community. We sharing our goals and responsibility all together.
Cool. Yeah, so shows that you guys are very involved, right? So I know you were from the security side, cyber security, smart contract security. Even though you're in Unilayer already, you're still like involved, very much involved in these security events, which is I think is very helpful and very favorable to the Unilayer network in what we're doing right now. So how about you, Nick? Whoa, how are you doing?
Actually, it's
Well, the same. Yeah, that's quite a challenging day. Had a lot of questions and a lot of investigations. So, not only about the case, but the case is the main subject for sure. So, yeah, that was quite a challenging day. Thanks.
Oh, okay, cool. So I think people would want to know, right? Because there are many bridges already. There are like interoperability protocols established now. But the question is, I think for most people now is can you tell us like what is the problem Unilayer network is solving?
Oh, it's a big one. The thing is, there was a very curious and important, utmost important document, which is uh, Bitcoin Manifest. And in Bitcoin Manifest, there was explanation of the basis of the decentralized world. And here, with the bridges, with different oracle systems and etc., somehow we went outside of the base ideology to centralized points. And because of this ideological problem, uh, we created weak spots on a whole network. Too many hacks and exploitations happened recently. Just day before yesterday, there was another one breach exploited. And the thing is, here we, as a UniLayer, can provide decentralized interoperability, which is very important. So just imagine each node, level one node in a chain, can inject inside of it, can be in the same moment hot node of another chain and not hot node of UniLayer, which means each node can participate in this data movement from one chain to another, and each node can do it. This means that it is decentralized, and each movement will be resulted as a consensus, like votes of that nodes will be gathered in a consensus since we are level one, and naturally we will have transaction history on that events. So this means that the basic problem about interoperability, which is centralized points in that road between two chains, finally has been solved.
Oh, cool. That's interesting. Just a curious question. Is this protocol like the first of its kind in the current blockchain industry?
um, there were some attempts to make it real, but the thing is, to make it real, to make it easy to use, easy on a surface, it should be really complex under the hood, which means that there was a very nice idea from, for instance, from Polkadot with their XCM. But in order to do this, in order to use XCM, you should be parachain toward Polkadot, which is impossible if we're talking about large networks like Ethereum and other. So this means that XCM basically don't have use in on a most cases, but the idea is great. We did actually pretty similar thing, but in our case, every required change you should imply on your code of your node will be done on our side, which means that it's not mandatory for the integrated chain to be parachain toward us. And this is very innovative thing to think.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think for me, in my couple years of being in blockchain, I haven't actually heard this one, like embedding your a node of another chain from one to another. So Nick, if you wanna add something.
Yeah, kind of. Because the thing is, there are different solutions of interoperability, and still, they are usually are either focused on their own base, so like Layer Zero or Polkadot. So they are building from the inside. So they have their blockchain, they're expanding. The idea of UniLayer is to unite the blockchains as they are. So we are providing that interoperability, but we are not focusing on the base of our blockchain, and we're providing those connections. So it's very important, as I see, that we can do something not changing, but still very changing for the world.
I
Yeah,
cannot.
yeah.
We've seen too many upcoming blockchains in private discussion ideas and different visions what kind of blockchain should be created, and we've seen so far that it's like a trend. In too many blockchain will be released with a specific focus, specific goal, and which means that request for a demand for interoperability from the market will be much higher in the future. Because, for instance, you'll have blockchain focused on this specific thing like 3D modeling, data storing, or more business side things like KYC, for instance. And they did great. Every chain can solve everything around that problem, that specific problem. And as a project, you want to compose this functionality in inside your project, inside your logic, which means that right now you'll face like unavoidable requirements to establish very complex backend, which is obstacle and very huge one.
Oh, cool. That's something new for me. So since we are like talking already about another chain, so I think people are also like I've encountered people asking that how is Unilayer network different from other chains? Like there, are, as mentioned earlier, there are already bridges, interoperability solutions. So how is it different really, and what is the critical value that Unilayer adds to this industry that is like everyone is trying to solve the true interoperability?
The most important difference here uh, that seamless transition of the information. I mean here that just imagine you have since we have technical call here, I I guess I can be pardoned if we will go a bit deeper in details.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
let's
Please,
hold.
please.
So just imagine we have projects which is a core of the UniLayer node. It can be compiled, it will be binary, you can run it, and it is through RPC port, it can communicate with different nodes. So it's basic composition of blockchain. But in the same time, in this exactly the same process, compiled as well another node, and it has another transaction history. And on the top of this, it can communicate with UniLayer node, which means we can receive from that node already processed events. We can request the information from data transaction history, and we can push transaction. So this means that each node of UniLayer can vote by its own on the transaction status without going somewhere else. So it can count only by on himself, and we can, as since we're level one, to gather votes of that nodes in a single consensus, which means that in order to exploit this communication, in order to abuse it, we should perform something like 50 persons plus one attack. And there is no 100% security in the world. It is always fighting sharpest weapon against sturdiest armor. And in our case, it's the profit you can receive from attack and price you should afford in order to perform it. So the question is how to raise the price of attack to that level that it will be higher than the possible income of that attack. Uh, because of this, we launched level one chain because level one has a quite good mathematic regarding that problem. We stimulated a few different scenarios of attacks, and we tried design to unfold. We tried different types of 50 persons plus one attack and flash loan attacks, and it seems that the price will be very, very high if you want really to alter the information that should be passed from one chain to another. This is the key feature here and the most valuable one. And as a basis for that feature, I want to add here that the how the data will be transferred from, for instance, Ethereum node injected inside UniLayer to UniLayer node. We, as a Ethereum node, a hot Ethereum node with full transaction history, will receive incoming event. And this is very natural thing for hot Ethereum node in a chain. Then after it was processed, we can handle it inside the process on a C++ level and to transfer it to our handlers inside our UniLayer logic level, which means that we successfully transferred information from Ethereum node to UniLayer node without using Tendermint SDK, without using third-party calls and RPC calls. It is all happening inside single process, single binary. And this is most important and most valuable feature. This is what I mean by saying seamless integration.
Oh, that's cool. So, Nick, you might want to add something.
Well, not
Maybe
sure that
from
I can add anything about it because that's quite deep and
Mm,
step
it
by
is.
step explanation of how it works and how we are going to integrate and the basics of the situations. So yeah, I just can say yeah, that's really true.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Cool. But by the way, Alex, can you think of like an example of how it works? Like a specific project. I think something's very hot right now is
oh yeah.
NFT. So how is it beneficial for NFT?
Oh, here we go. Actually it's quite painful question because there is a hidden bomb and the whole transferring of NFT process from one chain to another. And hopefully it won't be exploited. And hopefully it will be covered before it will be exploded. But the thing is, just think about it. If you have in chain A, should use this hand, in chain A, if you have NFT and you want to transfer it to chain B, in chain A, you'll lock or ruin NFT or burn somehow, and to mint it in chain B. But there is a question: how you should how you can prove that this newly created NFT is really equal to that destroyed NFT in previous chain, which leads us to very bothering question. probably it's very common way, it's very common case, somewhere in database, in cloud, or probably in a standalone server, will be recording that these two NFTs are equal. But why should we trust it? And on top of this, we shouldn't trust it. Definitely, we shouldn't trust it at all. Which means that if you'll transfer your NFT from one chain to another, probably traders or buyers or possible customers who interested in your NFT won't get it because they're not trusting that this NFT is really that NFT. And it's very complicated to provide proof for them. And even more than that, the process of transportation itself can be abused, which means just imagine one transferred NFT, one burnt or locked NFT in one chain will be minted in different chains in the same moment. Probably in a chain B, just on a chain B, but endless amount of that exact NFT, which is logically impossible because NFT should be only one, which leads us to conclusion that the real NFT was still remains in chain A, somehow ruined. And this is bothering question, worry. But in our case, it finally has a pure and proper solution. By saying this, I mean that um, in this this hand in chain A, you ruined NFT and there is transaction about it. In UniLayer, there will be transaction which will be directly pointing to that that ruination transaction. And this means that via blockchain scanner, you can go to blockchain scanner to check that transaction and to see reference to that transaction. And in the same time, this will have consequence transaction, which will directly point into minting transaction here. And this is very important, which this means that there is only one way to not trust that transaction, is to not trust blockchain at all, which is quite good problematic, I guess.
Oh, that's cool. That's very in depth, really. So I think you have a presentation for us tonight. So I think you can you can
Oh
take it
yeah,
away.
oh
I think
yeah.
you and Nick can take this together. So you are the tech guys. I'm just I don't know tech much.
I guess I can show
Yeah.
this quite curious slide here. This is overview of general UniLayer architecture. Um, I I can say a few words on this regards, and probably Nick will add something as well. The thing is, this is quite nice way to visualize what is UniLayer, how interception of UniLayer and another chains look like, and what type of that interception can be. And here you can see that we considering the fact that node of UniLayer, validator node of UniLayer can be validator node in another chain. It's like mixed type nodes. And there are like 4 cases of different type nodes. We can work with every of them. Uh, Very important thing to add here that as a first step, we will work only with vanilla type nodes, which means that if the node code, source code was altered some way, it's highly unlikely that it will be supported out of the box at the very first step, because we here focusing on the truth provided by blockchain itself. You should be aware that only vanilla nodes um, working on working as a blockchain, because all other types of nodes somehow probably abusing the base algorithm. And when we're talking about security and lesser possibility of leakage of information or possibility of being attacked, it should be something to consider. Very, very important point here. And since we know that it is vanilla nodes in different chains, already UniLayer nodes and nodes of the chains of different role models, we can create this graphic to explain the general architecture. This is base word. Probably Nick can add something more specific.
Well, about the nodes. So we have those wallets and nodes that are acting just usual. They are able to stake and to hold some coins, so they will be in the chain for sure. Um, Also, as a main part of the chain internal is a validator. That's the node which validates all the transactions. It's quite common not only in our architecture, and it's essential for sure. So the validator is checking for all the transactions, and we're using delegated POS consensus to validate those. Uh,
Mm.
and we're interact in the main interaction with the other chains is provided by the collator nodes. Those nodes are uh, nodes of that chain and the nodes of UniLayer at the same time. So they are naturally nodes of the integrated chain. So they provide information about that chain. They are the starting point. For example, in this scheme, if we are looking at the way how we transfer some information or some liquidity or something like that from chain one to chain two, uh, that would be the starting point. So something happens in chain one, we're creating the basics, the transaction, and the collator gets the information about it, and that's the start of it. So it's very important. So the collator provides information from the chain, from the integrated chain to the UniLayer. And the mixed type nodes are just the combination of the nodes. It can provide as the collator function of interacting with the integrated chain, and the function of the validator, so as it's the part of UniLayer, so we can validate the transactions itself. So that's the main structure and the main architecture of the integration process.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for this. I
Cool.
want to add here a few things. It doesn't really matter for us which type of collateral nodes we have in chain 8 or chain B. We can work with simple default nodes and we can work with validator nodes. But the thing is, it's always preferable to have collateral validator nodes like mixed type nodes because it will a bit speed up the process. For sure, we can push transaction from the simple node in the network. But if it will be validated, it will be slightly faster. So this is why it's important. But for sure, it's not mandatory. It is just, uh, in fact, it is all about token flow. How you can raise money by validating of different transactions and processing them. This is very important part of UniLayer architecture as well. It is tokenomics.
Oh,
But
cool.
yeah,
Go ahead. Yeah.
uh, but the tokenomics itself, we already mentioned that we're using DPoS, which means that it is proof of stake as in the first place. So there is no proof of work in UniLayer. And second, it doesn't really matter for us how huge UniLayer is, because every time on the voting on that transaction will be fixed number of nodes who will validate it. The algorithm of choosing these nodes is based on some randomness here. I guess I can say this word, even though as a technical guys we all know that there is no exact randomness in IT right now. Nowadays, it's very challenging to achieve. But as well, it should be mentioned that if we want to raise transaction from UniLayer to some chain in order to make something, right, that transaction will have half at least of validators these collateral nodes, because only collateral nodes knew exactly which status that transaction should have. And here I mean that transaction will be raised in target chain, and UniLayer transaction status depends on the status of that transaction in target chain, which means that if for some reason, for instance, in target chain transaction will be reverted, we will revert our transaction as well. And if the transaction in target chain will be confirmed, we will confirm our transaction as well. I
Okay,
guess
cool.
we. Yeah,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Continue, Alex. Sorry.
Yeah, I suggested to move to slides about bridges because
Oh,
bridges.
yeah, but before you move, since we're on this topic, some one of our viewer actually asked this question. I think you can answer this. How is Unilayer network validated? Is from Mainnet. He's actually a dev as well. Very curious about the project.
Oh yeah, it's quite a good question. Thank you for asking. Uh, we are depots, which means that first you have to become master node, and this means you should stake some UniLayer tokens in order to be master node. And second, after it, you can become validator, which actually is just changing of your status, which should be approved by the network. It's like a transaction, so it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy, but the most important requirement here is to be master node in UniLayer. So you should stake tokens. And for exact transaction to be validator on that transaction, obviously you have to be validator. You have to already have that role. And second, by the selection according to different parameters like your availability of your nodes, internet speed, geo position. Probably there is a chance that it will be used as well as a parameter. Based on different parameters, you have a chance to be chosen to be validator of that exact transaction.
Cool, cool. Okay, I think Maynard, thank you for that question. That was very helpful for us. So, Alex, if you wanna proceed to your next slide.
Yeah. Oh,
Sorry,
it's
sorry for the interruption.
no worries, no worries. Well, we'll have conversation here, so it's very natural. Um,
Yeah,
this slide is very important thing. Like it's the most key information about UniLayer. So be aware of it. Because here we explaining the transaction, the message flow from one chain to another. This is how we sign message. This is how we passing in, acknowledging the message and transferring it. This is the most basic part of UniLayer interoperability. We will share that information through our group, and we welcome in conversation. But the thing is, it's actually quite simple process. Um, Most of the process I already explained about when I talked about injection of one node inside of UniLayer. This basically how it works. um, but I wanted to talk more closely. Oh, actually, we came to a slide raised by Nick. He wanted to explain in detail how it works.
yep. Please, Nick, take
Uh,
it away.
yeah. So that's the scheme of the transaction. Actually, how it is proceeded, how we are operate about it. So, for example, we have some message of user one which was initiated. So the user say, I wanted to uh, send, for example, something, and the message is created. So the status on chain is changed, and our collator node is listening to that status, and it's changing itself. So we see like, hey, there is something new. We waited for that. Actually, that's the work of smart contracts. So the smart contract is watching for the status of the nodes and reacting as it's accordingly. So then we are changing the status inside our chain. We're saying that yes, the message is received. Yeah, yes, Alex.
Um, uh, it was a bit messed up because we didn't say a word about smart contracts. Allow me, please, to introduce that feature for our auditory, and then you can explain through the transaction flow because it seems we missed a very important and key feature in our conversation. uh,
Well, yeah, sure, please.
yeah. Thank you so much. So, what is smart contract in UniLayer? We added support for Ethereum virtual machine, which means that you can upload in UniLayer Solidity-based smart contracts. For sure, we will introduce new languages later, but as a first step, it will be more than enough to have Solidity-based smart contracts. And we a bit extended. We support in the very last version of Sol-C, and extended it with just one change. Just imagine, in order to reference another contract, in a classical Solidity, you have to create program interface, like description of the functionality of the contract without actual implementation. And this way you can reference this contract to put the data, to get the data, to operate with this. So it has only one parameter other than description, only one parameter, which is address of that contract, address of the contract we're describing in. And here in UniLayer, we introduced second parameter for this specific interface, which is symbolic name of the network. It should be quite easy to use for developers, and this is why we did it in this way. We are looking forward for positive experience for developers. Guys, we know it's very painful. We're trying to ease your pain as much as possible. So yeah, as easy as possible to use. Simple Solidity, simple second parameter. But in fact, it means much more than that because we are this, you can reference contract. You can reference contract in another chain by passing address of that contract and symbolic name of the chain. And you can operate via this mean with the contract, get the information from contract from another chain, pass the information to contract to another chain, and finally to have contract in UniLayer, which is and this is most important thing for us, as a replacement for backend in cross-chain architecture of your project. This is our goal. Please continue,
Cool.
Nick.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Just to mention, I must say that when we are talking about interactions, actually, it's not like a user interacting. It has, of course, some push for the start. Most of the interaction is operated by smart contracts, and that's very important. That's the essential of interoperability. So when I say that the messages sent and that we are changing, actually, that's the things that are written in smart contracts and the interaction of smart contracts. We must always take in mind that thing. So we are stopped at the step 2, where we are changing the status of the information, as we are having always the state of that message and the transaction. We're changing that situation, and the smart contract is changing it accordingly. And smart contract says that we need to operate with chain B and change the status there. For example, it might be the change of liquidity, so we can get liquidity from the liquidity pool and send it to some wallet or something like that. So here we're changing the status in chain B. We're requesting that first at the steps 3 and 4. So this is where at the step 4, that message or the transaction is sent to the user, and he has okay. everything is sent perfectly, that's okay. It's also automated. And then we must say back to the chain A that the transaction was okay, and to the UniLayer that the transaction was verified, and everything moved accordingly and smoothly. So we're sending just back the information that the transaction was a success. So we're changing the state in our chain. We're marking that that transaction was a success, and telling chain A that, hey, that transaction was a success, mark it down, and it marks there. So that's the scheme which represents this process. Thank you.
Wow, that's
Well,
impressive.
yeah, that's indeed in depth. So yeah.
Oh yeah, this is my beloved part here. Now we're talking about bridges. I'm not very technical question. Someone asked us. Oh yeah, I'm not very technical person. um, you see, there is a thing. No one in crypto so far can be counted as an expert because the whole crypto as an industry is just too young. And here is the thing: everyone here at some point was self studied in all of this. It was complicated as a first step, but then um, it it became much more complicated and then even more. But for some reason, we are here gathered in crypto, all passionate, all pioneers, and ready to learn something new. So if you have some question to, regarding to the crypto and have a technical stuff and etc., please come into our group chat and have a pure pleasure of discussion about that matter, because um, very soon it seems the our group chat and we will introduce later some Discord server will be more pro technical, and it will be quite nice place to ask your questions to increase level of your experience. Everyone here is pioneer somehow. What gathers us is our passion. But let us return to UniLayer and bridges. You see, classical bridge has a composition. It is chain A contract, a contract in chain B, oracles accordingly, and backend in a center, which means that we have three weak points in a classical bridge. And we've seen too many cases when it was exposed. So it is oracles and backend. They are centralized. And even more than that, we should trust for to maintainer that he is an honored person at the honored crew providing quality services, and they definitely won't abuse their service. And this is quite challenging because obviously it's not entirely true, unfortunately. In a crypto we should walk without trusting each other, without a requirement to trust anyone. This in essence what crypto is. But bridges with this centralized part brings us to the same old problem of centralized vault, because in a classical bridge we stepping outside of the classical cross-chain idea. And here again we're talking how UniLayer can help regarding that. And the solution actually is quite easy. We can be a replacement for oracles and backends. We are just few smart contracts in UniLayer. It is possible to achieve this situation. Like, let me explain in more technical sense. Um, in case of a classical bridge, clients, in order to send money, will send tokens to chain A contract. They will be locked or burned, doesn't really matter according to implementation. Then backend, some time to time, will ask through the Oracle, the contract in chain A, how is going, was there any new event, and if it was, then it will be created in chain B, like minting events, send some money or make it available to receive to the client in chain B. So this is our weak spot. Here we can exploit oracles, we can falsify requests from backend and send the money to some unjustified user because of this false testimony, right? And we can exploit backend here because we can create false information inside backend about some events, and we can raise it. We can sign, if we have an access to the backend, that transaction to the chain B in order to make the attack real, to mint money to attacker in chain B. But in case of UniLayer, we can replace oracles, centralized oracles, and centralized backend via smart contracts. And this is BAM, because in UniLayer, in the most basic sense, this will work how? The client will same old smart contracts in chain A and chain B. Client will send tokens in chain B, chain A contract. They will be locked or burned, doesn't really matter again. Then it is possible for clients through the web part of the bridge to call contract in UniLayer. It is Web3 compatible, so you can do it via MetaMask. And UniLayer in a chain will create processing of that transaction. Everything in a blockchain is event based. So there is no crawlers here or iterators or timers or something like this. It's all event based. It all depends on the client. And the client will pay for the whole calculation. So this here is how it works. UniLayer will create transaction in two chain A. Half of validators of that transaction, like I said previously, will be collateral nodes with chain A. In this transaction will have status pending, like how it was explained by Nick. Then in chain A will be created transaction with the sender, which is cross-chain account, which is also a very important feature of UniLayer, and based on gasless model, which means that the cost of that transaction will be paid by the value, tiny piece of value, not the whole amount, that's for sure, um, of that transaction, which will be directly automatically converted in a local coin. But this is boring stuff. This is very usual practice. But that transaction will be about obtaining information from chain A contract about the fact that the client really locked tokens in chain A. Then, if that transaction will be successful, we will create second transaction in UniLayer, and also it will happen after confirmation of first transaction in UniLayer. Second transaction will be to chain B. And actually, this is much more challenging because here the cross-chain account will be worked in terms of cross-chain smart contract, because this call should be performed from smart contract. So this call will be about how to mint money in chain B to receiver. This will have the same mechanic, except this tiny difference about sender in chain B. Pretty much that's it. This how it works. So why it's important for bridges? Just imagine the cost of maintenance of backend and oracles for common bridge, and the level of stress of having it, because it can be exploited at any time. According to our experience, like 2 days ago, there was unfortunately another exploitation. So DevOps, backend developers, oh, you can see my hand, right? And updating of these features is very consuming, and you always will be scared, and possibility to replace all that stuff via just smart contract, it is tempting. and delivery of new features for the projects will be much easier in this regard. So this is what I wanted to share about the very basic working road in UniLayer. I've seen new question.
Yeah,
Thank you so
cool.
much, Maynard,
Ju-
for yeah.
Yeah, I'll show the question here so that everyone can see it. I don't know if
Uh,
you can. If you feel free to answer it.
I can actually answer it. The reason is for listening to the other chains is
so,
actually uh, collator nodes. So they are the part of the integrated chain. So, for instance, chain is had new block created and something like that. We're not taking that information for an instance. It is stored in that blockchain. Still, that information is available in our collateral node. It's listening to the blockchain to it. It's part of it, so it's just natural. That's the main reason for listening to the blockchain, to the integrated blockchain. And for example, that's not the new block created, but let's imagine we had a transaction to the wallet, and we have a smart contract which is looking at that wallet for now, and that's the initial push from the user, for example. So that's the transaction which happened in that blockchain one, in the integrated blockchain. We're listening to that information naturally because our collateral node is a part of that blockchain, and as all the nodes of that blockchain, it will receive that information as a blockchain status. So we get that information and react to that accordingly if we have some smart contract or something like that for that part of a blockchain. So it's in short, we are listening to the chain because we are some kind part of the chain. We're integrated.
oh yeah. Let's be surprises with the statement. So here is the statement. There is no way to have an access to information circulated inside the chain when you're outside of it. I said it previously in previous video, I believe. So the solution actually contained inside of the description of the problem. In order to have access to the information circulated inside of the chain, you have to be a part of that chain. And this is precisely what we did. We grabbing part of the chain inside of our chain. It's not actually 100% accurate description, but you can think this way.
Cool. Thank you for that. I think we should give Maynard a shout out for being so participative tonight. He's being curious, and I think it makes the conversation a little bit more uh, like interesting, if I would say it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Actually, I just showed as a background the slide about our tokenomics and base token flow processes inside UniLayer.
Okay, cool. So I think if you wanna continue with this one, we cool.
Oh, actually, I guess we can proceed with the questions. It is just very fancy background, self-explanatory, I believe.
Yeah, if you wanna, Maynard has another question. If you wanna answer this one, it'll be cool. So I'll
Oh yeah,
I'll flash it here. So here's the question.
oh yeah, precisely. And the thing is, we have minimal threshold amount of nodes between us and target chain, which means that in order to make transaction from UniLayer to target chain, you have to have this minimum amount of collateral nodes, nodes which in the same time UniLayer nodes and nodes of the target chain, to say Ethereum nodes. To say Bitcoin nodes doesn't really matter. What matters is that the network should be integrated. Actually, I'll explain the integration process a bit later. And the thing is, if we don't have minimum threshold amount of nodes, then the transaction will be reverted because we can't ensure security of that transaction. Just imagine with our idea of cross-chain transactions and communication, the case when we have just one node between us and target chain, obviously this node can be considered as an oracle. In order to avoid that very unfortunate situation, we enforcing this formula about minimum thresholds of nodes. What is that formula in essence? We right now in the process of describing that formula, but the base concept here is how to increase the price of the attack on that collateral nodes to that level when the possible uh, income of that attack will exceed the price of attack or will be equal. This is the reason of that formula to be existed. And um, there are a lot of complications around this logic because chains based on peer-to-peer logic, it's unclear at the moment uh, which size the chain has, because in order to verify it you should ask each node of the chain. But we can make preliminary estimations, and this is most important thing here.
Cool, 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 cool. Very cool. So
And we silenced. How about to proceed to some questions we gathered through different
yeah,
conversations and etc.
yeah, sure, sure. Do you have any more to show? I would like to see it before we ask.
Well,
But if not, then we can continue. Like I have some curious question for you as well for you and the team. So
actually, I wanted to add very important thing here about the
mhm.
process of integration. For those who maintain their own blockchains, how they can integrate their blockchain inside our ecosystem. What should be done? Let me explain. Top 15 chains and our partners, those who reached partnership with us at that moment, will be integrated by our own. Based on that experience, there will be Ethereum-based chains, non-Ethereum-based chains, chains like Tethers, Near, Solana, and etc. Uh, Based on the experience working with them, we will create comprehensive guideline how which files should be updated in UniLayer core, how which tests that should be passed, and then you as a maintainer can create contribute PR to UniLayer um, repository, and after review of community of maintainers, it can be accepted. And then, since we have functionality of after updates of the UniLayer network, it can be spreaded through the whole network. And that's quite curious, but you're not obligated to turn on your after update functionality. But the thing is, probably you'll maintain fork of UniLayer, and that's the thing. So, in short, after passing verification of your pair in UniLayer repository, the next important step will be provide enough collateral nodes. Like I said previously, there is a formula about minimum required amount for the transaction to be passed, and this should be done as well. So why to run UniLayer node, for instance? It's very natural since you already have hot nodes of your chain, for instance. It's a bit sophistication, pardon me. Um, the cost of maintenance of UniLayer is quite low because the code based on PIVX, in fact, it was Dash. Um, Code base C++, highly optimized with compilation flags for different operational systems. So the cost of maintenance, and we have unique genesis, the cost of maintenance of this kind of nodes is quite low. and you can wrap your already existed hot node of your chain via UniLayer node, and this node will be more efficient because this way you'll be able to receive transaction fees from cross-chain transactions. So this is quite natural, and after providing suitable amount of nodes, the chain will be able to operate with your chain and pass the information to your chain. So this is pretty much the basic explanation how to integrate your blockchain inside UniLayer ecosystem.
Cool, cool. That's very interesting. And by the way, before right after we start the show, this event tonight, we mentioned that there are major milestones happening in UniLayer right now. So I'm excited myself to know what's going on and what these major milestones we're talking about. Can you, if it's possible though, can you can you share it with us?
Yeah, yeah. A plenty, an abundance. We successfully launched UniLayer testnet on a private mode, and recently we introduced in that UniLayer testnet a very important feature, which is cross-chain, not cross-chain at that moment, just smart contracts. Supporting of Ethereum virtual machine. Of course, uploading of that contracts right now, it's more like a really fun journey because we don't have interfaces like infra type interfaces to upload your contracts. So it should be done via Node. So we have faucet in our testnet. Testnet actually is complete copy of mainnet with just one difference. It has its own faucet. So you can receive free tokens in order to test your infrastructure. So we are faucet, you can receive tokens, you can become a master node, then you can become validator, and this way you through the console interface, you can through CLI, you can upload your contract to the network. This is how it can be done right now. You can do it. And we will announce very excitement news about publicalizations of our test net. It will become public, so everyone can will be able finally to fill the form, to receive binaries, and to run it. Hurry!
That's exciting. The fact that we're running like the smart contract now is really a major major milestone because not to mention any project some project actually are like still working on it, but for us in Unilayer, I think this is a huge accomplishment, right? What do you think?
Sorry, I was a bit distracted by the question of crypto. Nope,
Ah,
actually, it's quite nice question.
yeah, yeah. You can answer this one if you want. Do you want to answer this one out?
Oh yeah, oh
Crypto noob?
yeah.
Sure.
It's
Cool,
always
cool, cool.
exciting to answer on this kind of question. The thing is, yes, exactly, because we every node of UniLayer can participate in data transition flow from one chain to another, from UniLayer chain to target chain. To be more specific, every node can be collateral node. This means that it is decentralized, and we don't have oracles because each node is like normal node of UniLayer, and the each movement will be gathered and consensus, like I said before. And because of these two simple facts, yes, finally it is replacement for oracles. We can operate with different chains without oracles. Uh, Let us return to your question. So sorry for this.
Yeah, no, no worries. I was just asking that this smart contract implementation in Unilayer network, the testnet, it shows that the Unilayer idea, Unilayer vision is really coming to life, right? And it's I think it's a major accomplishment for the dev team.
Yes, very important next step for us will be to perform integration with testnet of Ethereum. Obviously, it won't be Ropstein for those who knew. They they knew, yeah. Obviously, it's not Ropsten. It was successfully matched. It will be integration with the testnet, Ethereum testnet, and then we will be able to perform very fast integration with Ethereum-based blockchains because they're pretty similar. They have differences, that's for sure, but it's much simpler. Still, it's much simpler than, for instance, working with Bitcoin. So this is our next major step, and with this step, uh, cross-chain smart contracts will be released as a feature.
Cool, 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 cool. So yeah, I think this has been a very like informative and fun conversation. I think at least for me, it's been fun. So if you know, and we've been here for an hour. So I think anything you wanna say before we or you wanna add like you think is very important. I think we start with you, Alex.
Thank you so much for watching that video. I hope it was enjoyable and informative because
It
it's
is.
my
It is.
too few good information sources in the whole network. Hopefully, we added just now another one.
Cool. How about you, Nick? Do you wanna add something?
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Also glad everyone who asked questions. Uh, Still, as we said previously, you can still ask them in our Telegram, and we also have Twitter, and you can get access to that from our website. It's unilayer.io. All links would be in the description. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, and I think we'll post them in comment section. So thank you for being here. I hope you got the information you've come here for. Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. So yeah, thank you for your time, Alex and Nick, and appreciate you having here. Discussing the in-depth things. I know you're busy with investigating with Solana event right now, but you still give us time to explain what's going on inside of UniLayer Network. So. I think that's it for us tonight, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being a good sport, asking questions, and you know how Alex appreciate those questions. When he see questions in the chat, he'll be like, "We answer it right away."
Yeah,
So
it's right.
yeah, cool. So thank you everyone, and I think we'll be seeing you sooner than later, I guess. So as we progress the UniLayer project, we'll be here to bring you timely updates for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you everyone. You have a
Thank
good
you.
day. Good night.
Bye.